Super excited for this very heartfelt episode with a brother and a mentor and a teacher who has really helped me understand where I've been running rackets and, reaching so many blind spots in my life that had been controlling my life for a very, very long time. And I know this episode will speak to you, the listener, because if you're here, then you might be really smart and self-aware, and maybe you've read some books and you've listened to podcasts and attended episodes, but as much thinking and information consumption as you've done, you might still be experiencing the same patterns of self-sabotage or stress or anxiety in work, in relationships. I know this was the case for me for a very long time, and Parag entered my life at a really beautiful time and really opened my eyes to a deeper layer of work that's actually helped me get to the root cause of why I continued to create so much unnecessary stress and anxiety in my life by showing me about the importance of the shadow and the body in healing, and kind of jumping off the vicious merry-go-round of therapy and coping and really healing the root cause once and for all. Parag, you really mean a lot to me, in more ways than one. You've gone from a friend to a brother to a shadow coach, and now we get to facilitate events and hold space for people together and support them into the deeper nature of their work and journey with self-improvement and self-healing. So I'm really, really grateful that you're here, man.
Wow, thank you. What a milestone. It's been a privilege. Thanks for having me. Really excited to get right into it.
Amazing. Well, I think a really good place to start, and in light of what I shared around, a lot of us get into self-improvement because, perhaps we want to thrive in our careers or relationships or health or finance, and we consume a lot of information. But if you're anything like me, and I know how you were as well, you might still be feeling stuck, even after years of self-improvement and self-healing, and still reverting back to the same patterns of behavior. So, perhaps can you share with us why is that? Like, why do so many people feel stuck, even after years of self-improvement?
A short answer to that is because it is a trauma response. And I relate to this so deeply because that's how also it started for me. That deep seeking spirit, it came to me as a trauma response. I grew up in India. And for those who have been to a developing country or a third world country or have lived there, can appreciate the level of moral dissonance that comes with growing up there or even visiting there. And so it can break your soul on a level that you can't fathom as a child. And on top of that, I was a very sensitive child. So it did my head in. And so my way of coping with that was to dissociate myself completely. It was too overwhelming. It didn't happen consciously. Maybe the body did it for me or I did it to me. Nobody knows. But that's how I coped. When we do that, and look, everybody on all levels have a level of dissociation. I mean, the reality of growing up in this world, which is so polarized, so contrasting, so difficult to have a human experience, and we're not really prepared for it. We don't come here with a life manual, and nor the school cover that as a syllabus. And so we all sort of have a level of dissociation of our own, which is basically, in human language, numbing yourself from feelings. And so that's what I did. I did it on another level, looking back. I suffered from chronic dissociation. And so to the point where I actually started thinking I was above the world and a superhero who is I suppose I was like wearing some superhero shield that I was not feeling anything. And so what then it did was it separated me from myself. This dissociation separated me from my human experience, which as I then grew up became a trauma response to find the answers as to what's wrong with me on an unconscious level. Not that I was doing it consciously, My ego made this out as science of self-development. I'm going to be Anthony Robbins. I'm going to be the next coach that can teach the world how to be the guru. That's how the ego made it out look like. But deep down, what I was really doing was looking for answers. And so I took upon me to find those answers. And so as soon as I turned 20, I remember drowning into some 150 books looking for answers. And I would just go nuts at whatever came to me, whatever topic, whatever subject, whatever concepts, I would chew them up to the point I had become that Anthony Robbins that I had imagined to be. So a short answer is that we are not looking for answers. We are looking for truth. And that truth is basically coming back to yourself. That truth is basically about trying to remember that human experience that we all lived once as children. That gets projected out as many different things. And one of that thing is, let me grow, let me fix what's broken and play God. So then I'll be that whatever. So that's sort of the idea of why seeking is such a dog chasing its tail game. And you can always keep chasing the aha moments. You can always keep looking for the next big concept that'll open your mind, but it'll just be that. It'll just be a virtual reality headset of trying to get a feel of the real experience. It won't still be the real experience.
Okay. There's a lot there that I want to double click on.
Yes.
So, you know, there are a few things that you touched on just when you grew up in India, and you said like what you were experiencing broke your soul, which led to this dissociation. You know, I have a lot of dear friends and loved ones who have struggled with dissociation and have, I guess, missed chunks of their life on account of this. So yeah, before we get into like the truth seeking and what that means, can you share a little bit more about what that environment was like for you growing up at home, and
absolutely,
how you believe or how you know that to have led to this dissociation and what that means?
Being a sensitive kid, I think I was feeling everything really deeply. And to give you an idea, I grew up in a very middle class family. It wasn't too rich or wasn't too bad in terms of finances. I lived in a comfortable condominium. So if I was to look at my life as a child, it was really comfortable. But where the soul broke was we would have helpers coming home to do the dishes, to do the laundry, as it is in most of these third world countries. And I would bond with these helpers. They would play with me. We would crack jokes. And I would think that, oh, wow, this is such a great world. Living in my apartment, we are helping each other. My mom's paying a salary. They've got a job. They're helping us with our chores. My mom's happy that way. And then I would walk to school. And my school bus would just arrive just outside the condominium. And if you've ever traveled to third world countries, you will realize there's such a polarization of, you can see amazing condominiums and right outside you will see slums. Yeah. So I lived in a similar environment, a gated compound, a gated community, spick and span inside, but as you walk out, surrounded by slums. And I would actually see those helpers living there. And so I would cross the road to go and get in my bus, and I would walk past their homes, and I would see how different their environment was to mine. And that just didn't make sense to me. That just did not make any sense at all to me. And that's just one example. There's so many other examples of kids walking down the streets without even proper clothing, can't even go with 2 or 3 meals a day. And I would carry my classy lunch tiffin to school, and I would fight mom to get me the best looking school bag. So there's a lot of that going on for me as a sensitive kid. And I think that's where I realized it wasn't that easy to be in this world. And I think I, somewhere at some level, had an unconscious belief that the world is broken. My world is broken. I don't belong here because this is not the world I want to be in. And this is too painful because grown-ups are not doing anything about it. This is just a kid's version. I can't do anything about it. I was too young to do that. And so that's where the dissonance happens. This is where the moral dissonance comes in. And then you just go, you know what? I'd rather not feel anything. I'd rather just numb it. so I don't have to worry about it. So yeah, that's how it started. But there were so many other layers to that. I grew up in a household where my mom worked jobs, dad was obviously working jobs, and grew up around mom that was not really happy. She was always, I was the shoulder to cry for her, so there was a lot of that. So I was feeling all my parents' emotions. School was hell. Didn't go to a school that really was my type. In the times I grew up, teachers were allowed to whack kids, so that was obviously traumatic growing up as kids. So I went to a school that was full of teachers with anger issues. So just that level of moral dissonance did something to me, and my way of coping with it was dissociate.
Got it. Okay, yeah, I can appreciate that. It would lead to a massive inner conflict between how you've been raised versus how the rest of the world was raised. And it sounds like from a very early age you were really seeking to cultivate and create a sense of equality and equity, and that's why it probably didn't sit very right with you internally.
But I also think this is just not my story. All kids are sensitive. All of us, when we were kids, we were young, we were sensitive. We felt the world deeply. And mostly all of us didn't grow up in an environment that supported that or understood how to nourish that. And so that is why all of us, on some degree, have some level of dissociation, which is basically, in human language, living in your head versus living in your body.
Wow. Yeah, that's a really important distinction. And that's what I want to go deeper into, because that's revelation alone has been really helpful for me and my journey and through the work that we've done together. So can you take us then on a journey around how you were able to overcome that sense of dissociation and I guess how the path of seeking and whatever that looked like for you led you to to stop living inside your head?
Yeah. Well, if I can take you down another memory lane, which will lead into this, and that was around 10, when I was 10, I had already become a shoulder to cry for mom, and I wanted to do that for her because I saw her really struggling. And intuitively, I had this sense that mom's going to be sick someday. And so I had this choice within me to either go after my happiness or protect mom's. And so I chose mom over myself, which is, again, very normal as kids. It's a choice we all make. And I just knew that mom would get sick someday, which happened in 4 years from that moment. Mom did suffer from cancer. Family went through a massive heartbreak, 4 years of fighting that battle, which then led to mom passing away. I pretty much spent most of my teens all the way until 18 years of age in the midst of that. So I think it was about 13 years of age all the way to 18 years of age. I simply saw mom fight with cancer. Medicines, hospitals, chemo, all that sort of stuff. Then 18, I started going to college, fell in love, met, love of my life. And then it was such an amazing experience because coming out of this whole black hole, which went downhill because I was looking for something else. It was more a safe haven for me rather than a relationship. And so all that smoothie of events leading into this brought me into this deep seeking spirit. It just kindled something deeply within me. And I remember just submerging myself for 3 years from there in books, in workshops, 30-odd modalities, working through this puzzle maze that was really in my head, which was trying to protect myself from opening that one door behind which my truth was living. And that continued all the way until my late 30s, where I had hit an existential crisis. And I wasn't frustrated at the time because what was happening to me, I thought that was life. I had seen pain, suffering around me. I was frustrated because I wasn't one of those who was trying to run away from it. I was one of those who was trying to fix it, work on it, and solve the puzzle. So I was angry because I had read all these books. I had worked with all these modalities. I had taken things in my own hands, and still I was where I was. And so then I was sitting in front of a somatic practitioner. This was just the time when somatics was really gaining some traction. And I was sitting in front of her and telling her all this, how frustrated I am, how angry I am, how my life has gone to the dogs, in spite of all this work that I've put in. And she says, great, thank you for sharing all that. Now show me those emotions. And I'm like, sorry, what the hell is that? No one had ever asked me that question. What do you mean show me my emotions? I thought I just did that. She's like, no, you shared your emotions with me mentally. You've narrated them to me. You've spun a story around them. Now show me where those emotions are. And that is when the penny drop moment happened for me. That's when I realized, whoa, I don't think I can. I can't show these emotions. Where are they? Because I should be able to, given all the work I had done. And I think that was a penny drop moment. That's when I realized how far away I was from myself, how far I had come, or how deep I was in the maze, how lost I was in the maze, because I was so lost by that point with that one single question that I could not solve that riddle. And from that point on, it was a decade-long journey of really trying to work with that chronic dissociation, teaching myself how to feel little by little, like the gym. You're frustrated, you don't want to go, you don't want to show up, you don't see the results straight away, but that's what it takes.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I relate to that super strongly, and I know. I mean, I feel the frustration and the anger because like you, all of the great thinkers and philosophers, from Bob Proctor to Tony and who else, like Brian Tracy and Byron Katie, and there's such an abundance of information and great thought leaders out there that teach you to strive for more and use motivation and inspiration. And like you, I still felt quite disappointed that my life wasn't necessarily changing. And so what you touched on around learning how to feel, I think is really, really powerful. And it took me a very long time to learn how to feel. So why do you think it is so difficult for people to feel? Because obviously there's so much out there that you see on social media that's like, feel your emotions, you got to sit with yourself, you got to come home to yourself.
Yeah.
Like all of this language, which sounds really flowery and very pretty and very beautiful, right?
Correct.
But it can be really difficult to understand. Why is it so hard to do that?
That's because our baseline truth is I am not okay, but we don't want to look at it. Because if we do, then we know life's going to break. We know shit's going to come for us. And so what do? We go and run from it as hard as we can. And we've just built some amazing circus around doing that. Yeah, we've given it amazing terminology. We've given some amazing words, ambition, or holidays, or dreams, chasing your dreams, or building an empire, or buying your next Ferrari, whatever it is, yeah? It is all just a means to an end to feel what these things bring us. And so we are really trying to get back to the same truth of feelings, just projecting it outwards rather than looking inwards. But also, to the point earlier, and to be fair on all the coaches and that industry that works around the mindset world, I feel that is a necessary evil. You've got to first lose yourself before you can come home. And I think that's how it worked for me. Had I not done that, had I not gone on that quest, had I not lost myself, I wouldn't have come to the point where I surrendered. Because surrender only happens when the mind or the ego or you go, I've tried everything, I've been here, I've done that, nothing seems to work. That place is where feeling begins. Because until then, you're playing God. Until then, you are trying to get thing done. You're trying to fix. You're really trying to play God. When you stop playing God is when you start coming back to yourself. So it's a necessary evil. It doesn't have to be the case. But for those who are really stuck in that maze, know that this is necessary. It's all meant to be like that because you will someday realize that it just helps momentarily. It helps you cope, but it doesn't heal. And you got to find that, you got to go through that journey in order to go, oh, I surrender. you know what, I give up. And when you do that, you start feeling.
Wow. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that, to echo your point, the mindset work is really important. It's a big part of my work and this podcast as well. And, things like identifying how certain unproductive behaviors might be linked to limiting beliefs. Like,
Yes.
I need to do this all on my own,
Yes,
or I'm not
yes.
good enough, or, I can't trust people, right? Yes. Like, all of these things are very important, these ideas, because they do inform how you show up.
And it's powerful if you're stuck, isn't it? It's powerful if you're crippled. If you are really in doom gloom, that is just amazing. And it gives you your power back. So absolutely. And there is a journey with that. You've got to, that's the journey of I'm a victim to, no, I can take my life in my hands and run. But you run to an extent where you go, okay, that was just another, maze. And that's when you go, okay, I surrender this as well. So emotional work begins, or shadow work begins, the moment you start surrendering. So we have all, again, amazing words for that, like burnout or rock bottom or I can't do this anymore, whatever, those are all just same things of saying, I surrender, I give up. And that's when real emotional work can start.
Wow. Yeah, that's really, really powerful. How did that look like for you, right? Again, like, because I'm always mindful of the language that we do see used quite liberally in the personal development space around surrender.
Yep.
I agree with you. It's a really important habit and practice to get into. Tangibly, though, and for a very long time, I was like, how on earth do I actually do this?
Yeah, what is surrender?
Yeah, what is surrender? And so can you perhaps share with us, what did that process look like for you? And maybe what was your rock bottom or turning point or burnout, or whenever you realized, okay, I think I need to fully surrender now to my emotions and to feel again. Like, how did you do that?
Okay, so I think surrender is not something you can do. Surrender is something that happens as you begin to feel your emotions. What comes first before you feel your emotions is a mindset that I prioritize feeling over thinking, which means as soon as somebody comes to me and gives me a book, I say, no, thank you. I want emotions. And so that's the first step. The second step is showing up even if nothing comes up, even if no fireworks show up, you still sit down with yourself, eyes closed, close your eyes on the outside, but open them on the inside, look deep within, and have an honest conversation with yourself. 90% of the time, that sheer acknowledgement that you can give yourself of the truth itself brings fireworks. And so that is the first step, mindset. The third step of that mindset is to not give up, because resistance is going to come up. Again, you go to the gym, you don't want to go through those reps. Yeah. All sorts of thoughts will come. This is not working. This is not happening. Why do I even need a good board? I just go home and I just eat chips. All sorts of things will come. Exactly the same thing happens because you're literally retraining your nervous system. A nervous system is actually a physical nervous branch of nervous system that lives in your body. So it's not something psychic or woo. So you're retraining that. So you have to be okay to push through resistance. And then lastly, talk to yourself. I feel this is a big part of teaching yourself how to learn, again, to feel.
No one trains you not to feel, so we do it to ourselves. So how do we train ourselves not to feel?
That's a good question. So before you can train yourself how to feel comes the mindset. And I call this the anchor mindset. The anchor mindset is to prioritize feelings, not negotiate with them when they happen, not be embarrassed about them yourself when fireworks come, waterworks come. Once you're rooted in that mindset, what that actually looks like is you are either working with a coach or a therapist who can hold space for your emotions. There's an agreement that I'm here just to cry, so let me, don't send me down mindfulness, don't send me down a different path of coping, be there for me. So that's one way. Or you can just have a date with yourself once a week, create a set and a setting, journal, pen, close the door, uninterrupted space, and simply have a podcast with yourself, right? close your eyes, open your eyes on the inside, and just ask yourself a question. How are you doing? Yeah. Now, here's the thing. When you ask that question, you have answers that can win Nobel Prizes. Yeah. You can have answers like, I'm not so good. You know what? But I'm going to make sure we are. Don't do that, because that's what you've been doing so far. That's the maze. That but is where we start looking away from the baseline of I'm not okay. Instead, go towards I'm not okay. Say to yourself, I'm not okay, man. This is really difficult. I'm struggling. I'm frustrated. Life's been painful. I try to love people. I try to do things. I try to help them. I try to keep the peace. I try my best, and things just keep breaking. And so I'm angry that it keeps breaking. Okay, great. So then the host asks you, okay, well, what are you angry at? I'm just angry at things keep breaking. Okay, well, what happens when things keep breaking? Why don't you just let them break? Well, if I let them break, then I hurt people. I can't tolerate people's pain. Okay, what happens when people cry? What happens when they're hurt? Well, I get hurt. So you're trying to be the peacekeeper because you don't want to get hurt. Yeah. You see what I mean? This is just a dialogue. Now, we do this all the time. I'm sure you've caught yourself talking to yourself. I'm sure you have those moments driving down Port Melbourne, a beautiful scenic drive, and you go, oh, how's my life going? And then you answer yourself as well. Not good, man. Okay, what can we do? Yeah, that's it. Except now it's inverted. It's focused inwards, eyes closed, and having a podcast with yourself. You know, you're the host and you're also the guest. So this is an unraveling where you're asking basic questions: why, how, what, when, and answering them. Yeah. When was the first time this started? When was the first time I started being the peacekeeper? Why do I even need to keep doing this? Or how is that going for you? Or what happens when you stop being the peacekeeper? You see what I mean? And so initially, it might just be a practice of Q&A. You might not have waterworks coming up. You might not have emotions come up, but you have now given your body a message that I'm here for you. I am not chasing greener pastures. I'm not chasing empires or $1 billion or 150 books like I did, or 30 modalities, whatever. I'm here for the truth. And I surrender because I've tried playing God. I've been there, I've done that. Show me how. That is when your body starts to speak. That is when your body says, okay, well, here's the truth that you're not willing to own up so far. When that moment comes, now this might happen, or this was me, let's say, when I was session 1 with my somatic practitioner, and she was asking me all these questions. Okay, close your eyes. Tell me what makes you angry. And I'm telling her all this stuff. And then she's like, okay, where are you right now as you're telling me? Oh, I'm in a living room, talking to my ex, blaming her for all the stuff that's going on. Okay, good. Now, what's going on in the body? And so the attention suddenly goes from the living room to the body. That's the next step. Because you want to be in the body, not in the mind. Yeah. You don't want to be in the memories. You don't want to be in the past. You don't want to be in the future. You want to be in the present. Guess what's in the present? The body, your awareness, what's going on right now, the podcast with yourself. That's in the present. And so that's how it started for me. And then I'm like frustrated because I can't feel his emotions coming up anyway. I'm just talking to myself. She's like, that's okay. That's a great step. That's a first step of how long have you done this before? No, never. Yeah. Because I was spending hours reading books, taking someone else's wisdom, but not dipping into my own. And so the first session was no waterworks. Second session, no waterworks. Third session, no waterworks. And I'm like, this is just another talk therapy. What's going on? Except this was talk therapy with myself. Agency within, a podcast with myself. I was asking questions to myself, not imagining answers, but seeking truth. I think it was the 10th session, roughly, when I had my first cry. And I don't know how it happened. I don't know what made it happen. But I do know that the 10 sessions prior send the body a message, a strong message that I'm not quitting, I'm not going anywhere until you speak. And when I had the first cry, that was a space almost like a psychedelic space. It's a space where time stops, the mind stops, and your body speaks. And I think I must have cried for a good 2 hours. And the first thought that came to me after all that finished was, what the hell just happened? And so that's how it was for me. And I think you've got to just trust and not give up. And again, this is not new. Yeah. When you want to go after your dreams, what do? I don't know how it's going to happen, but I'm going to keep going. Yeah. When you want to land that deal, make those 100 sales calls, how do you know the 100th call is going to be a sales call? What do? I don't know. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to persevere. That's it. That's what it is. And this is your body after all. Your unconscious is being desperate to get your attention. What do you think it's going to do if you keep showing up? Of course, you're going to start crying. So I feel people give away their agency to tools, to techniques, over dramatize this whole space of I need to feel. We need a somatic practitioner to give us a Bible so we can feel. No, that's just another playing God. Trust yourself and it will happen.
Yeah, beautiful. I definitely have felt in my journey of therapy and talk therapy, which has played an incredibly important role in supporting me in becoming more aware of my thinking patterns and also unproductive behaviors that I was getting stuck in, numbing out, chasing, escapism, all of these things. And yet I continued to run those old programs, even though I became so aware of it. So it developed this kind of sense of insanity, like I was driving myself mad. It, like you were saying before, though, it was that mindset piece of like getting to a point of, maybe frustration or exhaustion or wanting to connect deeper with my body. And so even when you talk about like being a peacekeeper, I mean, I really, really resonate with that because that was certainly part of my journey growing up and growing up also and having a parent go through cancer and basically convincing myself that I need to step in and try and cultivate a sense of safety and peace and abandoning myself in the process, which I know many of us do. But what you've described here as part of connecting to the unconscious is this really powerful concept of the shadow. And the way I understand it is the parts of ourselves that we have kept hidden or suppressed or judged. And so, when you talk about getting to the truth, right, which again can seem perhaps maybe esoteric or intangible, it's really the way I see it is admitting to myself the very thing that I'd been avoiding for such a long time and not dancing around it. Yes, there are some really, really powerful tools for coping and regulation, all of the stuff from like visualization, which is obviously super important. A lot of high performers and athletes use it to prime their mind and their bodies for performance, or affirmations or identity shifting to really start seeing yourself as a more confident, abundant, successful person. All of that's super powerful. But I realized in my journey that kind of, you take your words that you shared with me recently, it's kind of like putting lipstick on a pig. If you haven't addressed unprocessed grief or shame, or anger, or fear, sadness that lives inside the body.
Correct.
And obviously, this isn't woo. There's so much research that has been emerging over the last years and decades. Obviously, one that comes to mind is The Body Keeps the Score,
Yes.
Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. So the shadow is a really big part of your journey and your work that you help people with, that you've helped me with as well. Can you perhaps define it for us, trace its roots, and, perhaps, how this work has helped you go beyond simply studying and consuming books to something greater and perhaps even more liberating?
Sure. So shadow work was very accidental for me. I wasn't looking to do shadow work through my own journey. In human language, feeling your emotions and doing shadow work, they're not two different things, they're one and the same. Because emotions live in the body and they are rejected parts, when you go land on your emotions and start feeling them, you start integrating them back. That just happens to be what it is called shadow work in depth psychology. But shadow work was a term coined by Carl Jung. He's the father of depth psychology, shadow work. was a student of Freud, and to a point they had some great things going for them until they parted ways on this fundamental aspect of Freud believe there's nothing much you can do in the unconscious, that is just one big skip bin where we throw all the stuff we don't need. Whereas Jung said, no, 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 that's really where our truth lives, our power lives, our intuition lives, our gifts live. And we got to bring them back. Yeah. That's not a recycle bin. That's a treasure chest. Bring it back. And so you can seek out a depth psychologist if you want to go and do shadow work. My experience of depth psychology has been it's a lot oriented around awareness. And awareness of your shadows doesn't do much, although it's important. It's the first right step in the right direction, but you're really doing shadow work to integrate your shadows, not be aware of them. What's the point? You open a door and you go, oh my God, there's a lot of shit I've got to clear. Close the door. The real work is you get in there with your disinfectants and brooms and, and clean it, right? Clean the wardrobe. So that's basically what shadow work is. But in layman terms, in human language, when you start feeling your emotions are like fortune cookies. As you start feeling them, they pop open and something starts happening in you, something on a quantum level, it's something like million doors opening at the same time, where a lot of things you didn't know just become true for you. And you go, of course, how come I miss that? So a lot of those things starts happening. And so when that happens, you start integrating all your rejected parts. But shadows are basically all the stuff that we've shoved under the carpet, all the things since childhood that we didn't like about ourselves, we didn't think would be useful or didn't earn us love, and so forth, all the way until yesterday. Everything that's shoved under the carpet is basically a shadow. We've misunderstood those parts as useless parts. And here's an example. I was a firecracker kid growing up. I was on fire all the time. I was a fireball. I was really loud, etc., etc. Growing up in a culture like India, that is seen as a no-no. So I was really beaten into submission. And I became this nice person, people pleaser. Because I had this firecracker side of me, I said, dude, you're not good for me because you get me beatings. You get me punished. You are the one who's going to cost me love. So I need to lock you away in a closet, never ever show up. And I'm going to find something, some coping that gets me love, that saves me from a beating. And so that was being nice for me. The problem is that guy I locked away was where my power was. That is now what I use to share my truth. Yeah. But that's what happens. We misunderstand as a rejected part, useless part, but we don't know that any good because we were too young. When you start reconnecting to these parts, you go, oh my God, what have I done? And so you reclaim them. You really reinvite them as parts of you that you need because you do. But that's what really happens. When I shunned this part away, I became the nice person. This nice person took me towards burnout, took me towards existential crisis. And so I was missing this fireball. I was missing this dude I had locked away. So when I found him, I was like, oh my God, I was waiting for you. And then he goes, well, you're the one who abandoned me. You were the one who rejected me. So this is what happens when you start owning your shadows. We think, oh my God, it is a dungeon of demons and a void that is never ending. No, it is not like that. It is limited. It is a fixed backpack that you can go and work with. And you get to a place where this work gets to an end. You will see the end of it. So it's not ever never ending. You definitely do not drown in your emotions like a tsunami. That is again a perceived fear. It is just retraining yourself to feel your emotions. But that's really what shadow work is. Your parts that you've locked away, thinking they're your enemy.
Yeah, wow. Well said, man. And I definitely locked away many parts. One of which, like you, I learned from a very early age, and listeners of the show will understand that. I decided from an early age that in order to get love, I had to achieve more, and so I abandoned the part of myself that could just play be free and be comfortable just being. And, that, like suppression of that part helped me for a time until, I also experienced burnout. I also, used substances to cope with pressure, and, and it ended up in a very, challenging circumstance with the police and with the courts. And the work that I've done with my shadow and with you as well has helped me see it as a gift in many ways, because like you said, it's not just an awareness of that part that I'd previously judged, it's actually integrating it. And because of that, I can now talk about this really openly and freely and confidently, and embrace those parts of my soul, which I think is really powerful. And so that has really given me access to a greater level of confidence and emotional freedom, because those shadows are not running my life anymore. I see them for what they are and the part that they've played in my life, and I'm grateful for them. And so I want to share that, because whoever's listening might be thinking like, oh my God, like shadows and dungeons.
Yeah.
It's
Doom
like,
and gloom.
yeah, like
What is going on?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
it can sound really confronting, and I get that. It I think that's understandable.
Yeah.
I certainly felt confronted by it when I first started. But I think what was even more confronting for me was realizing the cost of
Yes.
keeping these parts unconscious.
That is absolutely true.
And so that's why I wanted to ask you, because one of my favorite quotes from Carl Jung, and I know is one of yours as well, is until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will
Correct.
call it fate.
Correct.
So for someone who's listening, who might be, a high performing professional, entrepreneur, maybe like me, who is wanting to create a certain level of freedom and joy and confidence in their life and abundance to share with their loved ones and their friends and their family, but are finding themselves stuck in these cycles of burnout and stress and anxiety and chasing and escaping and numbing out. What is the cost of keeping these parts unconscious?
Well, firstly, it takes a lot more energy to keep emotions at bay than to feel them. And so you just have to look at your life honestly to find that answer. What is it costing you in terms of your health, your sleep, your relationships? You keep meeting the same patterns again and again, replaying the same old past again and again. This takes a lot of pain and suffering than what you're actually running from. So I would say choose the right pain, not the wrong pain, So it's really comes down to that honesty that we were talking about earlier. If you can look at your life and if you can look at the circus, the hamster wheel that we are running. I mean, seriously, I know some people, their lives are like, it can become a circus that I'll go and pay. They will get up in the morning. They will then have ice baths at 5 a.m. in the morning. They'll get out of that ice bath shivering. Then they'll go and sit in the sauna. Then they will go and go for a run. Then they will go to the gym. Then they'll go to work they don't want to go, are fed up of, want to quit. They will suffer a boss that is literally doing their head in. They'll come home, they'll crash, they'll grab a beer, they'll numb themselves, scroll or binge watch Netflix, and they'll go to bed, maybe live through some nightmares along the way, inconsistent sleep, and they will get up again, rinse and repeat, and go back to their life again. This is a circus which we were not meant to live. This is not how our nervous system was meant to survive. Our natural state as children was peace, fun, curiosity, and joy. Now, you might say they didn't have rent to pay. But if you really look at it, our life as kids was a lot more scary than life as adults. Imagine this. You're on a planet and you're getting on a rocket ship. And you've been just told you're going to a new planet. You don't know who you're going to meet. You're just told there are two people on the other side who's going to receive you. You get on this rocket, you land on this planet, completely new atmosphere. Everything looks new. Even gravity feels new. And then you're just greeted by two aliens. They go, "Hi, we are your carers for life." And you're like, okay. And you're now left with learning how to walk this planet, how to even relate to this alien life, how to eat alien food, you are really on a new planet out of your environment that you are used to. Guess what? That's how we all felt as children, right? We just were birthed here. I don't remember anyone asking me if I want to go to Earth. So we were just birthed here. You were just handed over to your parents, and you had to cope how to live and grow up on this planet in a nervous system of a jellyfish, right? So if you could do that, I mean, how happy are kids? How joyful are kids? What do you think can take them through an environment like that, through a nervous system of a jellyfish? It's because we were so good at feeling our feelings. Our body was so good at regulating itself. We were just not in its way. And that's all we have to do. So I know we have rents to pay and we have a mortgage and bills, but I'm sure we can do a lot better job than kids.
Yeah, yeah, wow. That's so true. That's such a good way to look at it. We entered a foreign alien landscape and figuring out as we go along, and have had to learn very quickly in the first half of our lives how to sustain ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, I literally grew up thinking I don't belong here.
Wow. Yeah, and yeah, look, I mean, what you said before around the circus, I get it, right? And there's no disrespect to the cold plungers and the sauna goers out there. Like I love that.
Yeah.
They serve a really important purpose, you know, for regulation.
Yes.
I think, you know, what Parag and I are really talking about here is understanding that, you know, you can still regulate your nervous system. However, if there's unhealed trauma or unprocessed emotion that lives in it,
Correct.
no amount of cold plunges or saunas or talking about it or you know, tapping or breath work, whatever you use, like they're really helpful tools that can help you go deeper, right? What at least what we've experienced, what I've experienced in my journey is that, you know, the shadow work and learning how to identify it and feel the emotion beneath it and then embrace and integrate it
Correct.
is actually the thing that's discharged that trapped
Spot
emotional
on.
energy.
Spot on. Coping will get you back to work on Monday, but it is just not going to give you truth. And both is equally needed. We can't all quit everything and just run after truth. We would just have to be sitting on a mountain in a cave if you want to do that. So we need coping. Coping helps us get back to work, get back to life, be functional. But somewhere we have to have that honest conversation that, okay, how long do I want to keep doing this? And how sustainable is this? So it's a balance. It's a balancing act. So yes, I'm not talking about those people who are aware of that. I'm talking about people where we get a kick out of running from, you know, our truth in the name of, you know, Instagram healing.
Oh my God, yeah. It's a seemingly infinitely expanding universe of wellness. And
That's
you see
right.
the industry is booming with all of these
That's right.
cutting edge biohacking
Exactly. Yeah.
things. But like, yeah, no amount of biohacking will
Correct.
heal your shadow.
Correct. Healing is not sexy. Let me tell you. Healing is brutal. Healing is raw. Healing is honest. And healing is emotional. So yeah, if you're healing sexy, then you're going downhill, baby.
Well, just on that, like, yeah, what, you know, given the messiness, the brutality, the beauty of it, like what has been the hardest part of shadow work and shadow integration for you, Pride? What's been the hardest for you to face about yourself and your shadow?
That's such an amazing question because I think it is really not the shadow work or the emotions, to be honest. It was all about the myths that I had in my head about shadow work. And the top 3 myths are: one, once I open this can of worms, it's going to be endless. Yeah? That's a myth. That is not the case. Second, I'm going to drown in my emotions, which is not the case. You will not drown in your emotions. You will feel your emotions fully, but that is nothing like being drowned in them. And the third is I'm going to meet aliens and demons and entities as I start unlocking shadow work. No, you're just going to meet the 5-year-old you or the 10-year-old you and all the parts and all the memories that you chose not to feel. That's pretty much what it is. But it is the myths of shadow work that is in the way of doing the shadow work. Here's the other thing. Look at it this way. Your body runs a million self-governing systems every day, and you have no idea that it's even doing that. You don't make breathing happen. You don't digest your food. You don't regulate your hormones. You don't redeploy your energy in your system. A million different self-governing systems. You think as you start feeling, your body is going to drown you in emotions and you're going to be just lost in the void. No, your body knows exactly what you need and how deep to take you and how far you are ready to go. So you just have to trust your body and stop playing God with it. And I think this is where fundamentally we are approaching healing through the wrong lens. We are looking at healing just like we are looking at medical science. We are trained to, when we are sick, to go to the GP and get meds, pop pills, and we'll be fine so we can go back to life. But that's just medical science. That's not how behavioral sciences work. Behavioral sciences work based on self-agency. It is based on trusting your body, surrendering to your body, and letting the body do its thing. The body is the real healer here, not your mind, not you, not the 150 books I read, not the 30 modalities, or not the therapist or a healer. Yeah. It is your body. All we are just doing is getting out of the way. And this is just one of the way. Just demystifying the myths is just one way you get out of your way. Or even this awareness, this podcast, this chewing knowledge about all the thing that's in the way of doing this work is basically what was the biggest barrier for me starting to do this. Because really, when you start wanting to do this work, it happens pretty quick. It doesn't happen, I mean, you don't become a hurricane or an earthquake straight away. You start sobbing, you start crying a bit here and there, but you get confident. You get, oh, wow, I can cry. This is amazing. And then eventually you go, okay, I'm going all in. And then you unlock the hurricane.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I get that. That's been my experience, right? Like at first, I think to what you were saying earlier around training your body to feel after years of it being trained and taught how not to feel, it's like it's rebuilding a sense of trust and safety with your body, with your unconscious mind, showing it, hey, look, I'm willing to listen to you.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to take this body into spaces and places that feel safe enough for you to reveal, what you've been holding on to. And yeah, I mean, I started crying pretty much in the first session.
Yes, you're very good at it.
Which was great. But then what was really interesting is that, I would be in the car and I would be listening to a song and then I'd start crying. Or I'd go for a walk. Or I'd watch a movie and then it would just happen spontaneously. And
Yes.
it's like, it kind of brought me back to that same level of like sensitivity and emotional attunement and interoception, like you were saying
Yes.
before, as I had, I imagine, as a baby, as an infant.
You're absolutely right. So what you've described there is actually one of the milestones on this journey of learning how to feel. So initially, it starts as frustration. Initially, it's basically learning through failure, but persisting. Then there's a period of hit and miss where it happens sometimes and sometimes it doesn't. And you got to go through that as well, but that's motivating enough till the point something happens and the mind body connection clicks and locks in. When the mind body connection locks in, then you start having experiences like what you just described. You're watching a movie and just waterworks, yeah? You're driving and you just start crying. Or you wake up middle of a dream at 3 a.m. and you just start purging. That is the mind-body connection. You see, that is when you truly start going, there is a higher intelligence here at work. It's not me. All I have to just do is surrender. So absolutely, that is really one of the milestones on this journey.
For sure. Yeah. And I guess to someone who's listening and hearing this, and maybe it's the first time that they're hearing about shadow work or they've seen it floating around before and they're curious to go deeper, how can they identify certain signs that their shadow might still be running the show? Maybe in
Yep.
work, in relationships, finance, health. Like, how can someone start to identify, "Oh, actually, yeah, this is a part of me. This is my shadow that's creating my
Really easy. 3 things. and very easy to spot. First, triggers. Triggers are disproportionate reactions to what's happened. Yeah. This is when you're going to Woolworths, holding a bag of grapes, and you start crying. Yeah. Disproportionate reaction. Second are repeating patterns. If the same type of people are showing up, if the same type of themes, if the same kind of relationships, or even situations keep repeating itself, know that the shadow is running the show. And third, physical ailments, physical symptoms that, especially the ones that doctors can't point to or, diagnose for no reason. You got chest pains, you got shoulder pains, you got frozen shoulder, all that sort of stuff. So these are really three signs that are a proof that your shadow is running the show. Now, you can either go and outsmart, which is what we do often in the beginning. No, I'll outsmart the next person I date will not have all these qualities of all the 10 people I've dated before. But it's really another, the same pattern in a different body, different name, wearing different clothes. And so you got to go through that. You realize, hang on, something's not adding up. This is a pattern. Yeah. That's when you know it's a shadow running the show.
Yeah, beautiful. I mean, straight off the bat, like one that I can immediately point to is for the first part of my career, I didn't last longer than 6 or 12 months in any workplace because each and every workplace that I found myself in, there was either a boss that I was responding to that, I didn't feel safe or comfortable or valued in the presence of, or dismissed or disregarded, or I was, continuing to, attract similar opportunities where I wasn't feeling challenged or stimulated. And so that kept on happening, even
Correct.
though like I was really conscious of it. It was like, part of me not feeling like I deserve more or like I'm good enough to operate in the workforce.
Correct.
And
Same for me as well. Like people pleasing was a big thing for me. That turned me into a caretaker. So that was another thing for me as well. I was called a samurai in relationships. I would cut people off pretty easily. I would walk away from relationships pretty easily. So I had the avoidant attachment style, you can say. So these were all patterns, but I didn't see them as patterns. I just saw them as, nah, that person is at fault or that situation was not right or something. We have excuses until you get to a point where you go, maybe I'm the problem, not the one. And so it's a journey. You have to go through that till you jump off that hamster wheel. I actually call this whole phenomena as being cooked in the incubator of life. And then the turkey just comes out and then it's served. So we've got to keep repeating these patterns again and again and meeting the same people again and again in this incubator of life where until you go, enough is enough. I've had enough. I've been here, done that. Something's not adding up. I need to know what's wrong. Maybe the problem is me. And that's when you actually start looking at these things. Now, this may not happen to you as life in general. This may just happen to you in one area of your life. Maybe it's relationships for you. Maybe it's dating for you. Maybe it's work for you. Yeah. Maybe it's business, like being in the wrong partnerships again and again. Like I always would be in wrong partnerships. And I would always the people pleaser in those partnerships, the overgiver in those partnerships, which would then lead to resentment. Remember that guy I had locked away in the closet, the fireball. I didn't have him with me. And so I would then be the samurai, cut people off, and move to my next business. And I always thought it was the idea. I always thought it was the partner, but it was actually me. So this is the incubator of life that you need to fall off to realize, okay, something's not right here. Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful, so spot on, man, and thank you for sharing that from your journey. Yeah, there've been lots of parallels as we've discussed with all kinds of relationships and workplaces and partnerships, and constantly, giving or overserving or promising and showing up, and then perhaps feeling like it hasn't been reciprocated, and then thinking like, man, like why can't I catch a fucking break? Like what the hell is going on here?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I love the whole analogy and metaphor of the incubator because it is the way I look at it, kind of like the spiritual gym, if you like, or the emotional gym,
Yes.
where you're building that sense of strength through the resistance until you can kind of break through once you turn inwards. And I wonder, whoever's listening and tuning in right now, who might be finding themselves in one of these patterns that keep repeating. Maybe it's in the relationships where they keep on attracting the same, not the same partner, but the same experiences and emotional outcomes, but with different partners or workplaces. What would you say to someone like that who might be afraid of facing their own shadow, and to perhaps offer some support or guidance to create some safety to begin something like shadow work without feeling overwhelmed?
Yeah, safety is a big one, and it is a primary aspect of doing shadow work. It's a precursor. And part of the safety comes from the burnout. Part of the safety comes from just constantly trying to get shit done, right? So safety starts from surrender, you can say. The next level of safety comes from the stuff we're doing, just talking about our experiences, having seen others go through this. The third level of safety comes from someone else's nervous system. And this is where a therapist or a coach or a healer can do wonders, because we are not meant to do this work mentally. I mean, if we are solving problems, then our minds are at work, but this is body work. So our nervous systems here are at work. And just the way we are built as humans, we are meant to co regulate. So my nervous system will feel safe if your nervous system feels safe, vice versa. And so it's about that, finding that nervous system. It's about finding that safety, someone who can hold space for you, someone who can guide you, and who's not afraid of their own emotions. Because guess what's going to happen? When you start feeling your emotions, they're going to start feeling as well. That's just human condition. We are all meant to do that, co-regulate with each other. So if they haven't gone and done the work, they would obviously then struggle and resist, which in turn you would. So this is the third level of safety, where you work with somebody who can hold space for you. But the most important level of safety is that you can create for yourself, is to realize that you have been running for too long and you can keep doing this endlessly. And unless you try, unless you give it a shot, unless you commit to this work, even if it is for a week or even if it's for a month, unless you commit to that gym, because the personal trainer can only take you so far. If you don't show up at the gym, he's no use, right? That is the level of safety where you can come from, that you can create. So that commitment, that mindset that you build, and that resilience and showing up that you can gift yourself, is where the most important level of safety comes from. Apart from that, safety is, again, in my experience, I think we're over dressing up safety, because you're really being held by the body. The body is the intelligent piece here, not you. So you are not going to create anything. This is just like reading another book. Yeah. You don't have to create anything. You just have to surrender to the body and let the body do its thing. If the body wants to sweat, if the body wants to shake, if the body wants to cry, if the body wants to scream, of course it's not going to look sexy. Yeah. Of course it's not going to look like Instagram. But that is what you got to be okay with. Yeah. But if you're by yourself in a room, uninterrupted, that's okay. It's just you. Yeah. And so the body has safety already built within it. The body already has mechanisms, levers it can pull to stop when it decides you've gone deep enough today. Good work. Guess what? I have clients, especially women, when they're on their periods, where their body will block them from feeling emotions. Why? Because it's already working elsewhere. People who show up without enough sleep, people who show up, well, remember in your case, you had just finished a gym workout and you had come into a session. Guess what happened that day? Your body just couldn't feel. This is what I mean. Your body is already pre-set. It's already manufacturer settings built in. Safety is already built in. You just have to surrender. And it already works itself out. It organizes itself out, and you will never go deeper than the body thinks you are ready. Yes, safety is a precursor. And yes, all the first three things we talked about are important, but also no, don't overdo safety, because it's already a manufacturer, factory built-in setting for you. You just have to just test drive it. Just go for it. It's like going into a self-driving car. There's not enough safety you can do. It's already built into the software. Just take the drive. Just take the ride.
I love it. The king of metaphors right here. So good. And yeah, I think that's what I love most about shadow work as well, is once you have developed that relationship of safety and trust with the body, which you may have done initially with a practitioner or a coach or whoever you're working with, can start to take it on the road with you and do it on your own. As I do now, and as I know you do as well with yourself, like, because I don't like the idea of someone constantly having to depend on an external authority or source of
100%.
support for their entire life.
100%.
I'm all about like helping people, take complete ownership and accountability and feel well equipped with all the tools and the techniques and the resources they need to build that safety within.
Spot on.
And to take themselves deep into their unconscious mind to release whatever, wants to be released that day.
Yep.
And that's, I think been one of the biggest game changers I've found.
That is such a valid point, because real healing is self-directed. So real healing is something you give yourself. It's a gift that you give yourself. So you can, healing can never come from outside. It comes from within. And so that is why you don't want complex tools. You don't want a toolkit that is so heavy that you'll drown in it or get buried under it. You just want something simple that is organic, that even a child can do. And you just have to remember, not even retrain. This is a remembering. You already know how to feel. We just have forgotten it. That's all. And this is why shadow work or emotional work is the best self-directed work you can do. That you're not depending. Although I would say initially, for a certain period of time, again, like a gym, you need a personal trainer to show you the ropes, to show you how far you can push your body, how safely you can do those reps, and when you can take those breaks, when you need a drink, all that sort of stuff. But once you have done that, you don't need a personal trainer for life. You're ready to go all in. You're ready with your gym subscription. That's all you need.
That's it. Emotional subscription.
That's it.
Cool. So beautiful, man. There's so much in there. And I think as always, as we bring this in for a landing, in light of everything that we've discussed today, and even from your own journey, Parag, and in theme with the podcast, what does it mean to be liberated for you?
Oh, that is such a big one, because I was somebody who chased enlightenment and be liberated and all that sort of stuff. Liberated is actually being more human. I think liberation is just a concept in our head. We have all these. I'll be enlightened, and I'll see angels, and I'll meet Buddha, and I'll be a light body and all that sort of stuff. I mean, maybe that is a thing, but before we can be all that, we have to first start with being human. And being human, first and foremost, is to be able to feel, is to be able to experience life, is to be able to experience each other's joy and pain without having to negotiate with it. When we can do that, we can then go and become Buddha. So, first step of liberation is not expanded states of consciousness. It's being in the contracted state of consciousness, living in the present, living in the moment, fully open on all levels, feeling life like you're a part of it. And then once you're done with it, then once you're satiated with it, I'm sure life will show you other ways to amplify that. So yeah, liberation is basically being liberated from your suffering, being liberated from your patterns, being liberated from the life's incubator, being liberated from the hamster wheel and the pain you cause yourself, being liberated from choosing the wrong pain so that you can choose the right pain, which eventually doesn't even feel like pain. And that's another myth on this way, that what we call pain is really all unspent love. And this is one of the most profound shifts you will ever have an experience along the way. This is, again, one of those milestones on your journey. You realize, oh my God, all emotions are just unspent love, which I thought, because of my resistance, they're painful, they're tragic, they're here to get me, and so I need to numb them. But yeah, that's what liberation is.
Wow, that's so beautiful, man. That's so beautiful. Yeah, thank you. And the whole all emotions are really unspent love has been a real massive revelation for me as well. And even looking at something like anger and like that being an expression of wanting to protect and fear
Yes.
and in a similar way, like afraid of what might happen because I, on a deep level love myself or love
Spot on.
others so much that I'm
Correct.
afraid of what might happen to them.
Correct.
And shame, in many
Correct.
ways as well, like feeling like I'm not good enough or like I made a mistake because on some level maybe I love my parents and all of that stuff.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing that. That's like a really beautiful revelation.
Here's one on that note. Yeah, grief.
Yeah.
Grief is a big one. We all don't like to feel grief because it's heavy. And so, again, as an analogy, let's say you've just experienced heartbreak, your relationship's, gone, and you're sad. Whereas before, let's say you are in this beautiful relationship with this beautiful partner, and let's say you're on a cruise and you take them in the middle of the ocean and you say to them, look around how vast my love is for you. Yeah. And that's the sort of love we want to feel. That's the sort of love we all like to feel. And now, after the break off, you're in pain. That's the grief. Now, initially that looks like painful. That looks like, I don't want to feel this. But what you'll realize is, as you start feeling your grief fully, you will notice how deeply you've loved them. So before you were aware of the vastness of your love, now you start realizing how deeply you've loved them. You start spending all the unspent love that you didn't spend before. Now, after all of that grief comes up and becomes conscious, you suddenly are now aware of the whole volume of your love. Not just the breadth of your love, not just the vastness, but also the depth. When you see all of that, you just go, wow, that's how deeply I love them. So even if you haven't been able to receive the relationship, you will still keep the love. And that is how we make peace. That is how we let go a relationship, not mentally, but truly by spending all the love that's unspent.
Chills. Thank you so much, brother. That's so beautiful. Where can people find you, Parag?
On my website, metromonk.com.au. I'm also on TikTok, Instagram. I constantly teach about these little concepts. So feel free to follow me, and I look forward to hearing from you there.
Yeah, beautiful. And for those who are playing along, so that's Metro spelled METROMUNK.
Correct. Thank you. Yes, that's right.
Beautiful. We are actually running a workshop very soon. So a little shameless plug here. Do you want to share a little bit more about it, bro?
Yes. And I think this is where the beautiful synergy comes in, where I think we have such a perfect formula of that journey that we talked about, or the milestones, how you can gently bring along through your work people into safety, from burnout into mindfulness work, and then leading them into safety towards emotional work, where I can then take on after like the baton from there and then lead them into deeper realms. So I think I'm really excited about this. I think this is an amazing brainchild of our collaboration. I'm really looking forward to this. So this is going to be amazing. But yeah, what would you like me to share? What's the
angle? So we're going to start off with a 1-day workshop.
That
will
the mechanics.
That will facilitate at a studio here in Melbourne. Really going deeper into all of the stuff that we spoke about on today's episode around yeah, identifying the shadows that might be perpetuating these circuses and
Yes.
patterns in people's lives, and teaching and sharing the tools to help people feel well equipped to meet with their shadow, to feel the
Yes.
emotion beneath it, and to release that energy that, like you were saying before, the body is desperately trying to use to hold on to it, which
Yes.
would be better off being released so that you can channel it into creative pursuits,
Correct.
into your relationships with more peace and presence and love, or into your work with more confidence and creativity. So if you want more information about that, you can reach out to either Parag on his website or myself directly. There'll be lots of links in the show notes, so you won't get lost there. Yeah, with that said, thank you so much for being here. I mean, if you're here now and you've made it to the end of this episode, it really tells me that you're hungry for a deeper truth, perhaps like Parag and I have been, and you want to really get to the root cause of perhaps why you might be self-sabotaging or creating these unconscious patterns in your
Mm.
life. And yeah, in light of that, I say thank you, and I honor you, because it takes a lot of courage and a lot of honesty with yourself to be able to look at yourself and acknowledge that, if this continues to be repeating, then maybe that's a part of me that's waiting to be felt, that's waiting to be healed and acknowledged and embraced. So, yeah, I love you so much. I really appreciate you for leaning into this conversation. And yeah, if you found it useful, please leave a rating or a review on YouTube or on the podcast platforms, or leave a comment, share what stood out to you, ask a question. Parag and I are happy to dive in and offer support wherever we can. And yeah, remember, you are just enough as you are. So lots of love, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Awesome. Thank you.